Welcome back to the channel, guys. It has been so many months since I posted my last video. Season 5 is here and I cannot wait to show you what I have prepared for season 5 because man, we are taking a journey down to Italy because I've just been there a few months ago and myself and the missus has been eating our way through Italy for 2 weeks. The best carbonara, the best amatriciana, the pecorino cheese, the parmigiano cheese, the best pizza ever, Napoli pizza. But don't worry, I'm going to be preparing the most popular dishes when visiting Italy because you have to make this at home. I cannot tell you how much I love these dishes because man, too nice. On this episode we are traveling down to Tuscany, Florence, where one of the best steaks are made, the Bistecca alla Fiorentina. It doesn't get better than that. On the next episode we're going to cover risotto, carbonara, amatriciana, and my most favorite dish, pizza. Yes. On episode 5 we're going to be making the most delicious Napolitano pizza, the best margarita you would ever make at home. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell because you do not want to miss any of those videos. So let's get to it. So as I mentioned, we are making bistecca alla Fiorentina, which is a T-bone steak made in Florence, Tuscany. They make one of the best steaks in the world and it is so popular that when visiting Florence you have to try it if you eat beef. And on this episode we are making that beautiful T-bone. Unfortunately I do not have a Tuscan piece of beef with me, but I have a 21-day dry aged T-bone and this T-bone is so good it actually melts in your mouth. And I'm going to show you the perfect technique and flavor profile when cooking a T-bone. Bistecca alla Fiorentina, esquisito. So let's get to it. Now if you watched my first episode, season 1, I made steak and I showed you that technique and that flavor profile which helps you make that most tender steak at home, especially when you want medium rare. That technique is so important when it comes to steak. Every second counts. You don't want to overcook a steak. You want it medium rare. That is the kind of guideline when eating a steak because it is juicy and tender when eating at medium rare. You can eat it at medium, you can eat it well done, but trust me people, when eating a medium rare steak, you cannot go back to a medium steak. Trust me on this. Before we get started on the steak, I'm going to be making a compound butter which is really popular. Compound butter just adds tons of flavor. That flavor profile we want to build on the steak, we want it to be nice and moist and you need to taste that flavor all the way through. Nobody likes a bland piece of meat. So let's get started on the compound butter. Firstly, we need some butter. So really easy. Grab yourself a nice chunk of butter. It's all depending on how much of compound butter you're going to use. I'm going to use compound butter to cook the steak as well as finish off the steak at the end because man, we want flavor and that's so important. So a nice piece of butter goes into my dish. Now it's important to know that if you're using unsalted butter, you need to salt your compound butter. If you're using salted, make sure that you taste your compound butter before adding more salt because you don't want to have an over salty compound butter that will just mess up your steak. Remember, we're adding salt into that steak, so too much salt is not that good. Yeah, I have salted butter, so I'm going to have a small pinch of salt. So with my butter goes in a nice amount of garlic. This is about 4 cloves of garlic. I minced it up beforehand. Mise en place, remember, preparation before execution. So garlic goes in, Next, I want to throw in some thyme. We need flavor. We need some aromatics in my compound butter. So get yourself some thyme, okay? And all you want to do is just pull out the leaves into your butter. Man, it smells so good up in here. This is going to be too nice. I mean, when you travel to Italy, it is all about simplicity and fresh ingredients. I mean, the flavors are not that complex. It is so simple. It's unbelievable how people complicate such simple dishes when it comes to Italian. So make sure you got fresh ingredients. Make sure you got high quality ingredients. It's so important. I mean, that's why today I'm using a dry aged steak instead of a regular steak. You want to take it up a notch, and going dry age is too nice. So we have our thyme in. It's now time to add in some parsley. Yeah, I have some Italian parsley. We're going all the way Italian, so why not use Italian parsley? Okay, so as you can see, much bigger leaves when it comes to Italian parsley, bigger, bolder flavors. So just a handful will be enough. I like to just take my knife and just drag it along the stems. Just pull out those leaves. I mean, it's that simple. Parsley just takes your compound butter to a whole nother level. And now all you need to do, give this a nice chop just by running your knife. So once your parsley is nicely chopped, you can just take that and throw that in your mix of compound butter. Okay, man, it smells so flavorful up in here. The aromatics is just now that we have our garlic, our butter, our parsley, we can now throw in some spices. Really simple. All you need is a bit of salt. Okay, I'm using salted butter here, so just a teeny bit. And open up your pepper mill and give it a good pepper showering. So some good black pepper in there. Make sure you use whole pepper and not ground pepper. You really want some bold flavors here. Once all that is in your bowl, give it a nice mushing. So make sure your butter is not too hard when you're doing this. Otherwise, you're going to spend a whole day making compound butter. I took this out of the refrigerator and left it out about for 2 hours just to get it to room temperature, so we don't fight with the bowl when making compound butter. If you have clean hands, you can even use your hands here, so don't be scared. Okay, so my compound butter is nicely mixed. It's now time to put this in the refrigerator. But there is some way of adding this into a cling wrap where you kind of roll it up, make it into a small sausage and throw that in the fridge. But there's no need for that. Really simple. Just take your compound butter and throw it in a small ramekin where you can put this in the fridge and use it in half an hour's time. If you want to use the cling wrap method, by all means go for it. You can actually keep it for a longer time in your fridge, but I want to use all of this compound butter when making my steak. I don't want any of this to go to waste. So I'm just going to put it in an open small bowl, throw this in the fridge, and then use that delicious compound butter to make the most delicious steak ever. Trust me people, you will want to be making this every single week. So make sure you're taking down some notes. So we have our compound butter ready. This is now going to go and sit in the fridge, I would say 20 to 30 minutes. And while this is sitting in the fridge, we're going to start on that beautiful steak. Man, oh man, beautiful. Let's throw this in the fridge. So as I mentioned, here I have a 21 days dry aged steak. I mean, cream of the crop, the best of the best. This is from Woolies, which is popular here in South Africa. You can get it from any butchery, but I just like the steak that comes from Woolworths because it is mainly grass-fed, so you just taste a major difference when it comes to the quality of steak. But you can get your steak anyway, dry aged preferably when making this beautiful dish, Bistecca alla Fiorentina. You can go with a standard T-bone steak, but dry aged T-bone takes it up a notch. Let's prepare this baby. God damn, look at this beautiful piece of meat. I mean, always make sure you take out your steak at least 2 hours before cooking. You want the steak at room temperature. Never make a steak that is frozen. That is a big no-no. So make sure you take your steak out well in time. You just need to make sure you get all that water out. The more water you remove from your meat, the more juicier your steak will be, or any type of meat. So let that sit in the paper towel for a bit. Give it a small dab. Okay. And there we have it, a beautiful T-bone dried steak. I mean, whew, smells good. No, I'm just joking. This is raw meat. We need to cook this baby. Just a small tip when you buy in dry age. When it's in a dry age fridge, you want to make sure that you remove all of that dark bacteria that has accumulated around the steak. Sometimes your butcher will do it for you, like my steak right here. Sometimes they don't, but if you have the chance, ask them if they could please remove that. Otherwise, you have to take your knife and start taking off all of that bacteria, and you cannot cook that. So this steak has been nicely trimmed of all of that bacteria. That is just the whole process behind a dry aged steak. It forms that bacteria on the outside, creating the most delicious marble steak you will ever eat. Whenever a steak is dry aged, the flavor rises to a whole different level. I mean, you get like that cheesy fermented, like that mature cheddar taste, and it is beautiful. I know, I'm not comparing it to cheese, but you have to try it and then let me know in the comments below. What do you think about dry aged steak? So really simple. We're gonna throw some salt and pepper on this baby, nothing else. We got a prime piece of meat, so all it needs is some good salt and pepper. So some kosher salt or coarse, or any type of coarse salt you have at home. Okay, we don't use fine salt, iodized salt. We go straight for coarse or kosher. Okay, and some nice black peppercorns. Open your mouth, make sure you get some nice big pieces of pepper on your steak. Okay, and here's the secret sauce, beautiful olive oil. Now if you watch my first video, I mentioned that you should never use olive oil when making steak, especially when you're sauteing in a cast iron pan. Olive oil does not have a high smoking point, so it will burn. That is why I always use some neutral oil like canola oil or vegetable oil. But if you can get your hands on some cold pressed or cold extracted olive oil, then you have olive oil that can be perfectly used for sauteing, which means you can use it at high temperatures. You don't need to worry about your oil burning. So if you want a high-end, top-notch dish made at home, get yourself a bottle of good cold extracted olive oil. So here I'm using Tukara. They are a vineyard here in Cape Town, and they make beautiful wines as well. I'm going to use this olive oil to season my steak and also cook it in that cast iron pan. Just a small drizzle on the steak. Man, you gotta love golden liquid. All you want to do is just take your clean hands and give it a little dab. Okay, this also helps the salt and pepper stick into that meat. Always scrape off the spices from the board. Okay, we never waste. Always nice to get that fat nice and seasoned as well. So get that all out. Okay, the same with the other side. Let's drop in some olive oil. You can put your salt and pepper first. It doesn't make that much of a difference, but a little bit salt. Make sure you cover that steak really nicely with salt. Nothing beats grinding pepper. I mean, the aromatics that come out from black peppercorns, man. Okay, time to dab. Take your steak, wipe all the spices off. It's always important to make sure that fat is nicely seasoned. Okay, now we have a beautiful seasoned steak. I mean, man, I just want to bite this thing right now. We can eat rare steak, but not raw steak. So let's cook this bad boy. it's time to get the cast iron pan piping hot. If you remember in my first video on steak, I mentioned the properties of using a cast iron pan. Cast iron retains heat really well, so it's the perfect tool when making a beautiful steak because it creates this beautiful crust on the outside, and you will never get that with a normal stainless steel pan. So invest in a cast iron pan. It's a little bit more expensive. I mean, when it comes to chicken, pork, steak, ribs, whatever you have, that is the best tool in your kitchen. So let's turn on this heat and get this pan nice and piping hot. So when it comes to making steak, that temperature, that internal temperature is very important. I will always kind of have a guideline. Depends on how thick the steak is. I mean, looking at this piece of thickness, I would say go 2 minutes aside. Anything thicker than this, make sure that you throw it in the oven after 2 minutes on each side, because we use the cast iron to create a crust, not to cook the steak entirely, especially with a thick cut. If you have anything thicker than this type of steak, then sear it on 2 minutes each side and then throw that in the oven at 180 degrees Celsius for about 8 to 10 minutes. It's really important to get the medium rare, and if you take a thick steak and throw it in a cast iron pan and only use the cast iron pan, you will overcook it. You have to throw it in the oven with that pan, so just something to keep in mind. Pan is nice and hot. I mean, whoo, that's how I like it. So throw in your beautiful olive oil, just a drizzle. Okay, as I mentioned, this oil cannot burn. It has a high smoking point because it's coal extracted. Once the pan is nice and hot, and before you throw your steak in, make sure you have some timer because every second counts. I'm going to stop my stopwatch and make this 2 minutes. Let's cook this baby. Straight in the hot pan. Man, can you hear the sizzle? Too nice. So we started our clock. After 2 minutes, we'll turn the steak onto its other side and cook it for another 2 minutes. And on that last minute, I throw in the compound butter and cook this baby out because we need that butter to soak into the steak to make it even more juicier. Man, it's going to be too nice. Season 5, baby, we are taking it up a notch. I cannot wait to make the other dishes for you. Risotto, carbonara, amatriciana, and my favorite, beautiful Napoleano pizza. Woo. So I have my beautiful compound butter here. I'm going to use just half of this to cook the steak on the other side and keep the rest when serving, because man, serving your steak with compound butter creates an intense depth of flavor. So cannot wait. Coming down to our last 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There we go. Oh my god, let's have a look at that, people. Beautiful. Look at that crust. God damn. So as soon as we hit that 1 minute mark, I'm going to throw in some compound butter, and that is going to make the most juicy steak ever. Get a nice chunk of compound butter, and we're coming down to the last minute. We got 1 minute 10 seconds, 1 minute and 9 seconds. Alright, 5 seconds left. There we go. Just look at this compound butter right here. That is where the flavor is sitting, people. That is where the flavor is sitting. I mean, give it a good basting. 3, 2, 1. We stop our clock. We turn down the heat. We take our cast iron pan and we make sure we get this nicely basted. So look at this baby right here. Smells amazing. I mean, doesn't get better than this, man. And because I have a thick layer of fat on one side, I make sure I stand my steak up so that fat renders out. Grab that baby and hold it up. Just let that fat get a nice sear. So if you have a thermometer, you can measure around 120 degrees Fahrenheit or around 50 degrees Celsius, which gives you a perfect medium rare. So I've been making steak too long and I don't need a thermometer when it comes to steak. So yeah, beautiful. Okay, and the beautiful olive oil goes straight over this baby. If you want to reduce that down, you can make a nice steak sauce, throw in some butter, some flour, drop some wine in there, reduce that down, add some beef stock, and you got a beautiful red sauce. So now that we have our steak sitting, all we need to do is take our compound butter, place this baby right over it. This is going to sit on the steak while the steak is resting. I mean, look at this baby right here. It is looking so good. The compound butter is just soaking into the steak. When you're ready to cut, it's going to be so amazing. You got to love a good piece of steak. I mean, it's Friday, and what a better way to end off a busy week. Man, I like eating my steak off the board because you got all the juices that come out, and I like to bring back that juice into, let that steak absorb everything, and you know, you cannot go wrong with some good steak. So let's cut into this bad boy and see what we have here. Get yourself a nice sharp knife. Now with T-bone, you know you got a bone in the center, so you want to carve around on both sides of the bone. A T-bone has a fillet on one side or a fillet, and a sirloin steak on the other. So the bigger portion is normally the sirloin, the smaller portion is normally a fillet or fillet, and it all depends on your butcher. He can give you a really good sized steak, good symmetry of fillet and sirloin. I got a smaller piece of fillet and a larger sirloin, so it really doesn't matter. This is about 500 grams, so it is really more than enough for the two of us. So let's cut into this baby. Okay, so all around the bone, the sirloin is out. There we go. Beautiful piece of sirloin. And then we got a fillet here. So a small piece of fillet, but I mean, look at this bone. Juicy, juicy, juicy. All of the spices on this. A little bit of Maldon salt, one of the best finishing salts out there. I mean, you cannot go wrong with Maldon salt. Let's taste this bone. Oh man. Juicy, juicy, juicy. I just love steak so much. So now it's time to cut into sirloin, and let's see if we have a perfect medium rare. So fingers crossed. Now that is what I'm talking about, people. That is exactly what I'm talking about. Perfect medium rare steak. Come on now. Look at this, people. Can you get better than this, huh? Look at that. Perfect medium rare. And that is exactly what I'm talking about. Man, this is one of the best steaks I've made. It just gets better every time I make a steak. I just don't know why. But that olive oil, I mean, let's throw in some Maldon salt here. Okay, finishing salt, that is. You never use Maldon to cook, just to give it that last bit of touch, you know. beautiful. I mean, look at that, people. Best steak ever. Let's taste this baby here. Whew. God damn, that is good, people. That is good. Whew. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you're going to start making steak at home, especially dry aged steak. It just takes it to a whole nother level. Use quality ingredients, use a cast iron pan, use some beautiful olive oil, and you will have the most beautiful bistecca alla Fiorentina, even though you don't have your beef from Tuscany, and we can make do. This was so much of fun. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I will see you very soon on the next video. We're making beautiful risotto. Some carbs, but it's going to be a blast. So I will see you on the next one.